Welcome to Cinema Snapshots, a channel where we take a look at the latest films and their predecessors. We'll give you an in-depth look at what's new in the world of film and discuss the key elements of the films, from plot synopsis to the most memorable moments. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. When someone passes away, it was once thought that a crow will take their soul to the afterlife. But occasionally, something so dreadful occurs that it is accompanied by a profound melancholy and leaves the soul unable to rest. The crow can then occasionally, just occasionally, bring that soul back to mend the wrongs. Detroit's Devil's Night is on October 30th. Shelley Webster, Sophia Sheenis, has been beaten and sexually assaulted, and her fiancé, local musician and guitarist Eric Draven, Brandon Lee, has been killed after being stabbed, shot, and thrown out of their apartment window to the streets below. Sergeant Albrecht, Ernie Hudson, is on the scene of the crime. The following day, Halloween, was the day of the couple's wedding. Who gets married on Halloween? A cop sneers. Nobody, Albrecht says in reply. Albrecht encounters Sarah, Rochelle Davis, a young skateboarder who claims to be a friend of Eric and Shelley and that they took care of her, as he and Shelley are ready to head to the hospital. She is informed by Albrecht that Shelley won't likely survive. A bird soars over Detroit's gloomy and soggy environment a year later and rests on Eric Draven's grave marker. Eric is roused from his grave when the bird uses its beak to tap on the stone. Here's a movie fact. Even though the movie, based on the comic, is called The Crow, none of the birds used in the film were actually crows. All of them were in fact ravens, which are much larger than crows and have a longer, more impressive beak. He emerges from the earth trembling and in convulsions. He stands up and follows the crow to his abandoned flat, where he finds things in disarray. As the group responsible for his death sweeps across the city setting fire to it, memories of the night of his death return to him. He can still see the attackers' faces in his head, and as he grasps the shattered tympanum window frame out of anguish, the glass pierces his palms deeply. To his surprise, the wounds begin to heal by themselves as the blood from them pours back into his skin. In an ironic nod to the porcelain harlequin mask he had given Shelley as a present, he dons new clothes and paints his face white out of a desire for vengeance. Next, he lines his eyes with black eyeliner, draws tears of color down his cheeks, and paints his lips black with Glasgow lines extending from the corners. During filming, Brandon Lee, Eric Draven, was unhappy with the way his face paint looked when the makeup department applied it to him before shooting. Lee and Alex Proyas, the director, then agreed that it would look best if Lee applied his own makeup every night before going to bed so that when he woke up his face paint would naturally look more worn out. Eric goes out to exact revenge on the people who killed him and Shelley, guided by the crow and sharing the crow's vantage point over the city. The first person he finds is knife-obsessed gangster Tin Tin, Lawrence Mason. Eric fights with his hands in the air. He captures a knife and uses it to pin Tin Tin to the wall to end the struggle. When Eric questions him about the killings from the prior year, Tin Tin mocks Shelley by laughing in his face. Eric kills him by using his own knives to stab him in each of his vital organs, in alphabetical order, before stealing his trench coat and leaving a crow-shaped bloodstain on the alley wall. He visits the pawn store where Tin Tin had previously sold Shelley's engagement ring using his recollections. Eric finds the ring jumbled in with dozens of other rings in a box after compelling the owner, Gideon, John Polito, to show him where it is. He allows Gideon to live so that he can send a message of death to the other members of the gang before he covers the counters in gasoline, puts additional rings of dead people in a shotgun, and fires, setting off a huge explosion that destroys the store. While still alive, Gideon is severely burned. Eric finds Fun Boy, Michael Massey, the next bad guy on his list, smoking high in a residence with Darla, Sarah's drug-addicted mother, Anna Thompson. Eric mocks Fun Boy by appearing to be in pain after being shot in the hand, then demonstrates how the wound in his palm closes before his very eyes. Eric quickly disarms the terrified Fun Boy after he shoots him in the thigh and injects him with an excessive amount of morphine. After removing the drug from Darla's arm, seemingly by magic, Eric confronts her and warns her that morphine is unhealthy for her. He then advises her to go back to her daughter who is living on the streets by herself. Albrecht, meanwhile, has been keeping track of the thugs' fatalities all around town. He views the killings differently than the rest of the police, considering them more of a blessing than a curse. He even goes so far as to save Eric from helicopters after his most recent murder, however Eric quickly vanishes following. Later, when they run into each other again, Eric explains what he's doing and gives his best justification for returning. Albrecht confesses to him what he knows about Shelley's passing and says he stayed by her side as she endured 30 hours of suffering before passing away. All of the sorrow that Shelley was experiencing at the time is transferred to Eric when he touches Albrecht. Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott, the head of all the gangs in Detroit, is visited by Gideon to warn him about Eric. Top Dollar answers by driving a sword to the hilt through Gideon's throat as Micah, Bei Ling, his lover/half-sister/soothsayer, cheers on. T-Bird, David Patrick Kelly, and Skank, Angel David, two of Top Dollar's thugs, arrive at the house at around the same time with the breaking news of Tin slaying. Tin's Top Dollar snorts cocaine from a big quantity while displaying almost little care for Tin demise. T-Bird and Skank visit a gas station to buy supplies. Skank is in the store when Eric slips inside the vintage Ford Thunderbird and kidnaps him. Eric makes T-Bird travel through the streets at a high rate of speed. Skank follows the pair after running into the street, getting hit by a car, and stealing it. He sees Eric tie T-Bird to the driver's seat of a car while strapping explosives to him, then allow the car to drive off the pier where it explodes in midair and sinks into the bay. When the cops show up, they find a fiery crow-shaped emblem at the scene. Making Sarah breakfast, Darla is trying to win Sarah back. Although Sarah is initially dubious of her mother's apparent change of heart, she welcomes the effort and gives her a hug. Albrecht's boss yells at him for acting inappropriately just because he can and tells him he's been suspended. Sarah enters Eric's flat and calls to the darkness there because she believes he must be there. When no one reacts, she tells him she misses him and Shelley before walking away and saying she assumed he wouldn't care any longer. Though they are no longer friends, Eric speaks to her from outside the window and assures her that he still cares for her. Sarah and Albrecht connect over their shared experiences with Eric and talk about how he came back as Skank withdraws to the gang hideout and rambles erratically about Eric. Top Dollar, who doesn't seem to care about T-Bird's fate, T-Bird is planning criminal activity with his fellow felons at the gang hideout for Devil's Night. Eric interrupts the meeting while seeking for Skank and then makes fun of everyone there. Dollar gives the order to have him killed, and as his friends start firing, Eric is knocked off the enormous conference table. After a short while, he gets up, and a huge shootout starts. Top Dollar flees with Micah and Grange, his lieutenant, Tony Todd. Skank is saved for last and thrown out the window after Eric easily dispatches everyone else in the room with a rifle, fists, and swords. Eric is the last man standing when the police come. With Albrecht's assistance, he manages to flee. Top Dollar, Grange, and Micah talk about Eric's special skills. Eric is immune to damage, but only if his connection to the outside world, the Crow, remains intact, according to Micah. The three of them come up with a strategy after realizing that if they kill the Crow, they could also murder Eric. Eric goes back to the cemetery and pays a visit to Shelley's grave after killing the final one of the 4 people who had slain him and Shelley. When Sarah arrives to bid him farewell, he presents her with Shelley's engagement ring as a necklace. When Sarah leaves the cemetery, Grange kidnaps her and takes her to a nearby church, where Top Dollar and Micah are hiding. Eric notices Sarah is in danger through the Crow and rushes to save her. He follows the Crow inside, but Grange snipes it. Unaware of the consequences of injuring the Crow for his own invulnerability, Eric confronts Top Dollar and demands Sarah in exchange for letting him escape. Eric is defeated by Top Dollar after being shot. Sarah is taken to the higher levels of the chapel. Albrecht, who had visited the church to pay his respects, notices what is occurring and enters the building while firing. Eric is found on the floor, and he moves him toward the back spiral staircase. Micah takes the injured bird in an effort to use its supernatural abilities. Albrecht succeeds in shooting Grange to death, but he also sustains injuries. He follows Eric as he climbs the steps from below. Micah confronts the Crow halfway up the steps while holding it at knife point, but the Crow leaps up and pecks out Micah's eyes, leading her to fall to her death from the stairs. Eric finally reaches the roof where Sarah is being held by Top Dollar. While Top Dollar and Eric argue, he pushes her over the roof, but she is able to hang onto some scaffolding. When Sarah's cries for aid temporarily divert his attention, Top Dollar stabs Eric in the back and confesses to being completely responsible for both Eric and Shelley's murders, saying that nothing happens in their town without his approval. Before he can kill him, Eric grabs him and expresses his thanks for Top Dollar's crimes, all of the 30 hours of suffering Shelley had to experience at once. He tells Eric that he's like their sparring and that he'll miss him. Top Dollar, who is in excruciating pain, stumbles off the roof and gets impaled by a gargoyle. Sarah is rescued by Eric, who then brings her to Albrecht, who promptly gets in an ambulance. After that, Eric vanishes from view and crawls to Shelley's grave, where he collapses. Without any face paint, her spirit finds him, and they are at last reunited. Later, Sarah returns to Eric's grave, which has once more been closed. The crow is perched atop his tombstone with Shelley's ring, which Sarah misplaced when she was kidnapped. It is placed in Sarah's hand by the crow. Sarah tells that true love endures despite the destruction of buildings and the passing of individuals as it flies off into the night. For Brandon and Eliza appears at the end of the movie as a tribute to Brandon Lee, who was murdered unintentionally while filming in 1993, and Eliza Hutton, who was Brandon's companion up until his passing. Thank you for watching Cinema Snapshots. Subscribe to more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help this channel out.